Alright, this is Deagle Beagle. Thanks for watching the guide on how to use Braviary. Now, I was kind of famous for using Braviary in Dallas a few years ago. I don't know if I'm going to really compete anymore. I did kind of say I retired from VGC, um, but I do feel like I would do probably pretty well at a tournament. I can't get too complacent though or underestimate people. But I have practiced, I should say, a lot for the tournament. So I wouldn't know how well I would do if I were to go to a tournament like San Diego. But I think I would have a lot of potential because I am a VGC veteran and have done pretty well in tournaments when I really care and really am focused about it. Um, Other times I've just been too busy with school or whatever, so I just didn't do that well, or I got unlucky, or this or that reason, or I should have foreseen this one little thing coming, or whatever that. Anyways, um, so Braviary, the problem with Braviary that I see is it doesn't have a priority move like King Ambit. Like, let's look at the other Defiant Pokemon or competitive Pokemon. It's really um, I mean, why would you use Braviary when you could use something like King Ambit or Anna Hillape that are probably better than it? Now, Braviary does get Tailwind, but if you use Tailwind, you're probably going to be outsped by another Tailwind team anyways. So you might as well use Sucker Punch and get priority with King Ambit and have, uh, you know, good pretty decent resist defensive typing, and like normal, that's not really a great typing in general in VGC because yes, it does have a lot of it doesn't have a lot of weaknesses, but normal doesn't super affect anything, so you can't really use it to counter anything. Maybe you'd have decent moves in general that are rarely resisted and rarely super affected, but normal Pokemon, I mean, it does have a second stab at least flying, but normally isn't that great of a type unless it was a broken Pokemon like Kangaskhan. Um, Braviary, it was really hard to make it work a few years ago. I had to use like Facade with it. I think Brave Bird. I want to say close combat. I believe I used over superpower. I might have used superpower, but I think I would prefer close combat just because if you have to stay in, you don't want to really lower your attack normally. I rather lower my special defense than lower my attack. Like superpower is similar except it lowers instead your attack instead of special defense. But typically, see that I don't have as much of an issue with lowering special defense because if I'm gonna kill that Pokemon anyways, yes, they could have a special ally, possibly that hits me after that, but they might not, you know. But I'm for sure I'm more likely to use my attack for the following turn to finish off something than I feel like I would need the special defense. Usually, that's not always the case though, but usually. So I usually prefer close combat on any Pokemon over superpower. And then I back then when I used max moves, I used Tailwind. I didn't even use Protect because not only did I have Wakan Berry on it, which stopped almost all the ways people would use to to beat it would be either to use an electric move on it to kill it, like from Rotom, or they would burn it. So if you have both Facade and Wakanberry, then that kind of solves almost all the ways people would beat Braviary. And then basically, I would just use Max Airstream with Brave Bird and Sweep. But none of that really matters for this generation or this Series One BGC 23. Some of it matters, like Wakan Facade would still be a great way to use Braviary. I might still use it that way. The main issue, though, I see with Braviary is not that it doesn't have a good ability. It has a great ability. It has it's pretty good defensively if you, especially if you use Wakan Berry or some other berry even, because nowadays electric moves aren't that common. They used to be way more common, but for some reason Rotom and other Pokemon aren't used that much. Maybe because they don't do as well against the metagame as other Pokemon, and maybe they got rid of some how good some Pokemon are. Like, I just don't see, for example, Raichu as that good because electric moves aren't that common anymore. They used to be super common. Um, there's just not a lot of good electric types. Kilowattrel's decent. Some of these Pokemon are kind of decent, but most of them are gimmicky. Like, how many Pokemon are actually good? Magnezone's not very good. Jolteon's not good. Not Luxray. You can't even use Iron Hands. Really, just Rotom forms, and I don't even recommend Toxtricity because it gets countered by Wide Guard and etc. too much. Kilowattrel gets outsped by other Tailwinders like Murkrow or Talonflame, and then Pawmot. It's okay. It's like it has Fake Out and stuff, and maybe Revival Blessing in close combat, Double Shock, but it's not. I don't think it's top tier. I think it's like decent. It's not bad, for sure not bad. But you kind of have to use Sash with it. It kind of dies somewhat easily. It doesn't one-shot enough Pokemon to probably be worth it. Like, it's low bulk. Like, a Revival Blessing is not usually, to revive something at 50% is usually not going to save the day. So in other words, there's not a lot of good or common electric Pokemon that people would actually use. In fact, they would probably be more likely to use some other Pokemon, like Canerock, or something that would super affect Braviary. Not with the intention of super infecting Braviary because it's so rare, but they would probably more likely hit it with a super effective move from like Tyranitar, like Canerock or something, or one of these other Pokemon. Or then let's look at the ice again. Ice, maybe. They might hit you with an ice move like Baxcalibur, Abomasnow, or whatever, but generally, there would be few moves that super affect Braviary. Um, so, um, you almost might want to just run Assault Vest with it because, like I said, you're not gonna outspeed another Tailwind team when they have much faster Tailwinders and mons like Talonflame or Murkrow that have even a priority Tailwind. So, in all reality, you probably should just make it really bulky and survive hits because you're probably gonna go. You could outspeed half of the Pokemon with Bravery, but that's not enough. Like, I mean, it could be, maybe, but why would you use Braviary like that if you couldn't control the speed? Um, I don't think Braviary was ever that good unless you could use either Max Airstream or people just didn't prepare for it. Like years ago, if you used Braviary, they just didn't prepare for it, and you could use it pretty well with like Focus Sash or something, but nowadays I would probably use it like Assault Vest and use 4 moves with it, use some weird Terra type. So if it's normally super affected by rock and other stuff, you could probably make it some defensive Terra type and not even need protect on it and just use Assault Vest. Um, you could even use, I'm trying to think of the 4th move. You could use either U-turn or Rock Slide or Iron Head or whatever on it. Doesn't really matter. Um, yeah, probably Assault Vest is good. Sitrus is also good because it restores HP from either a physical or a special move. But I just see this thing being outclassed normally by Annihilate or even a competitive Pokemon like Kilowattrel. Why would you use Braviary when you could use Kilowattrel if you're trying to get boosts off of an Intimidate or whatever you're trying to do with Defiant? It's like just use competitive because you'll be at +2 special attack with Kilowattrel instead of +1 with the physical Defiant Pokemon. You could use, just the normal Thunderbolt Air Slash set and do a decent amount of damage with it. And then Annihilate is probably better, even though they're not completely comparable because they have different moves and stuff. But I mean, it just has great stats, and Rage Fist is really OP a lot of times. You have just access to so many different good moves. But Rage Fist is probably the best one overall, the most exploitable. I don't get why they make it 350 power. That to me is at the most. That's like way OP. They should cap it at like 200 or something. And maybe make it not so easy to be boosted. So I think people are just abusing stuff like they were abusing stuff like Mouse Hold and Annihilate because Rage Fist is OP, and then so is Population Bomb unless you have some way to counter it. But people are just slapping on Rocky Helmet or using a ton of resistances to normal. Which is another reason why I don't know about Braviary. Facade is a good move. It used to get like Frustration or Return, or I even want to say it got Double Edge. Um, yeah, I would just use Facade. Was it 70 power? It's like better than Crush Claw. And 5 more power it could miss, and only 50% chance to lower the defense by 1. Like, that's just obvious that you should use Facade on it. So if they poison you, paralyze you, burn you, it's not going to matter. It's going to make you stronger. Unless you really... I mean, Thunder Wave's going to make you slower whether you have Facade or not. So this move, I would probably use U-Turn on it. Just in case you had to switch out. And I don't know how much speed exactly it should be. You could check Deagle Beagle's blog to find out. Let's see. 100 and something. You could probably make it outspeed like Adamant Tyranitar. I think my Braviary was somewhat faster at Dallas, and then I made it slower later, realizing I didn't need that much speed. I might have made it outspeed a Jolly Tyranitar, I forget, at Dallas, but I don't know if most people use Jolly with Tyranitar. I don't think they do because they know that what's in between Jolly and Adamant Tyranitar, like nothing, like Pelipper, Corviknight, maybe Obama Snow, Sylveon, but they probably would just use Adamant Tyranitar because there's not that big of a reason to use Jolly. So I would probably just make it like 114 speed and then put the rest in bulk like this. If you wanted the Tailwind set, trying to think of if you ever would want more speed. I mean, you theoretically could use a lot more speed if you want to outspeed a few more Pokemon, but is it really worth using all that speed just to outspeed a few more Pokemon like Skeleridge or something? It's like probably not. It's probably not worth all those EVs just to outspeed a couple Pokemon when you use basically HP versus everything instead. So that's probably better, and it keeps it alive. So you can get possibly another hit off instead of just outspeeding. Yeah, if you face Skeleridge, then maybe speed is more. If like that Pokemon is like super common, it kind of is common, but it depends on how common these guys are. I would use probably Assault. If you don't want to use Assault Vest, um, use either Sitrus or use You could even use choice. Actually, choice scarf might be the best item on it because that cancels out it's the fact that it has a low speed, which is its main problem. Now let's look at what you need to outspeed. I would make it outspeed Meowscarada and Kilowattrel and probably Talonflame, even though it has a priority Brave Bird. You probably will make it outspeed that anyways, because something multiplied by 1.5, you can't make it into 195 speed. It would have to be 196. So 196 divided by 1.5 is, instead of 130, you would have to make it 131 speed. Or 132 is fine, whatever. And then you make it like max attack, adamant. You could even make it, yeah, adamant with all that. I don't know why Team Builder keeps making it 248. um, I would probably just use this 132. Let me check again. What has 132 neutral besides Braviary? Goodra and Houndstone. Um, I mean, if you want to save a little bit of EVs, and you don't care about those Pokemon, then you could just make it like 177 HP or whatever. But if you want to worry about the speed creep in these three Pokemon, then you could make it a little bit faster. I mean, I might just make it 132 speed. It's such a it's like barely any stats to just. I mean, when you could it could matter if you outspeed these Pokemon, even though they're not used very much. So you could use Brave Bird, same moves basically as the other one, Facade. I'm probably more likely to use Rock Slide on the Scarf one. Close. I mean, U-turn would be good too. You could use U-turn on the Scarf one. Either that or probably Rock Slide for the flinches, or if you need coverage for fairies or something, maybe Iron Head. But I don't think, unless you're using Terra Steel with it, I don't know if that would be worth it because you can already do so much damage with Brave Bird. So typically though, I don't think Defiant Pokemon are very good anymore. I mean, that ability isn't as good anymore because everyone's just like not bringing Intimidate because Defiant is so common that it's like more of a liability to bring Intimidate than it is to use it. It seems like because it's like if they have something like Annihilate or whatever, you can't use like Arcanine with Intimidate, or who's the other one, Gyarados or Salamence. You kind of have to just like use it and back and switch in at the right time if you really need to pick it at all. So I don't usually even think Intimidate should be used that much anymore. On some teams it should be, like defensive teams that could really benefit from Intimidate. Like if you're already, ironically, the teams that are already have screens and stuff, like defensive teams would probably use it the most, because if you're using like Intimidate against, I mean, stuff, and your Pokemon are already really fragile, then it's not gonna really make that much of a difference. But if you're using like Salamence in combination with Grimmsnarl, it's gonna make a big difference, because you could survive almost anything if they're intimidated. Plus, you have a Reflect Up, or a Light Screen Up, whatever, and survive like almost everything. But as far as Intimidate in general, to just spam it like you used to be able to just spam it because nobody really had counters for it that often. I don't think you can do that anymore because almost every team has King Ambit on it, or Annihilate, or they use a lot of special Pokemon. You know, there's also Gothitelle. It usually uses Shadow Tag, so I wouldn't really count Goth, but Kilowattrel. I'd say Braviary is normally outclassed by this Pokemon the most. Kilowattrel. Um, even though it is a little bit different. But this Pokemon, I wish it had Defiant too, because I know you can use Brave Bird with it. In fact, I should make a video about this. You can use Brave Bird and Wild Charge, which is different from how everyone else uses it. And you actually have a decently strong move now, a physical move that nobody expects. Especially on Showdown, they won't see the open team sheet. But even if they do, it's like way more powerful than an Air Slash. Like 120 power stab. Um, and then you would probably, if you're using it like that, should use wind power. I'll have to do a video on Kilowattrel. But anyways, these are the two main types of Braviaries I would use, or Sitrus. And you could use Protect. If you are using Sitrus, I'd use Protect for this fourth move. So let me make one more Braviary, and then I'm going to end the video. I'm going to say Protect. I'm going to... Well, you could even use... I'm trying to think of Tera types you would even want to use for this. You would probably use Tera, either Tera Flying or something, because Tera... What are you going to use? Tera Ground to survive a move from Electric, but you don't need to, probably, with Assault Vest. Probably just use Tera Flying for more power for a Brave Bird for like all these sets. What are you going to use? Tera Normal? Probably not. You're probably not going to use Facade most of the time. Let's keep it real. Most of the time you're not going to get burned. You're not going to be poisoned. You're not going to be paralyzed. So I wouldn't rely so much on Facade. The most common move you're going to use is going to be Brave Bird on all these sets, followed probably by Close Combat for coverage. Facade's really just there as, believe it or not, a secondary move in case you got burned. And I remember in Dallas, I like almost never got burned, so I like almost never used Facade. I think I only used the Facade for the max, whatever it was called, the max normal move that would lower their speed. To do that, to hit like Rodham W or something. I think I used it before because it resisted Brave Bird and stuff, and it would do more like I think with a max move than a max fighting move, because they lower the damage of the max fighting moves for obvious reasons, because you can snowball the attack. Braviary used to be a lot better when you used to be able to snowball the speed and attack and not even need Tailwind. Like I used to just use spam max Airstream and with Defiant, knowing that they wouldn't be able to pick an Intimidator to slow me down, to slow down the snowball effect, unless I mean they wouldn't be able to pick Intimidate to do that. So it'd be like an almost unstoppable snowball effect, and that's why Braviary did really well with the max moves. And it would also have max, like max whatever it is, fighting to raise the attack of my team, and it would help just snowball with Tyranitar or whatever. So I think that did really well. But if you use Sitrus with it, I would probably use the same type of moves: Brave Bird, Close Combat, and then probably Facade in case you get burned. If you don't use Facade, then you would have to use you might have to use Lumberry, but Lumberry I guess might be good for like Spore and Wisp and stuff, but normally I don't think that's that big of an issue. You can kill Amoonguss pretty well with Brave Bird. They don't normally run Koba anymore. And then what else? I was almost thinking of a Resttalk set, but I don't think it's not bulky enough though. I don't think for that maybe. It's not fast enough either to really do that. Like Resttalk, Brave Bird. I don't think Facade works when you're asleep. Yeah, it doesn't work when you're asleep. So I guess you would have to use like I would be reluctant using Close Combat with Resttalk while you're trying to survive hits. I might be more likely to use Superpower with it, and then use like, what item would you even use with this? You would use, you could use Lumberry with with the Rest Lumberry set or the Rest Chesto set if it's really dedicated to Rest. But um, you could use Rest Lum because it does work to cure your sleep or to cure a quick burn in that turn without you having to rest off the burn to get rid of it. So you could try some set like this, but if you're using Resttalk, I would probably make it bulkier. Like use probably no speed. You might even want to take some out of attack. I don't know how much you should take out of it, but you might want to take out some attack. I don't know, something random, kind of, and then boost a little bit in both, and figure it out. But I would not recommend this. I would recommend this. I didn't put the EVs on that, but it would probably be max attack, it would be, what's the other one? It'd probably be some speed like the other one. For this one, probably 114, same thing. Something around there. It's normally better to use animate because it raises your attack, which is your highest stat. So it's usually more efficient. Even though there's some cases where that's not always the case from some weird stat roll thing. So it's not always the case where you should raise the highest stat if you're going to make use out of it. That's generally the case. Because 10% of a higher number is a higher number, unless, like I said, there's some rolls where it goes from like 95 to 97 or something with less stats or whatever. It's kind of weird, but I think these are all decent ways of using Braviary that Jamie Boyt hasn't made a video on, but he probably will once he sees this video. Okay, thanks for watching.